Here's something that happens to me quite a bit, and that is I'll go to print something, and the aspect ratio of the image that I have is way off of what I want to print. All right, so for example here, let's just go say we're going to take the crop tool, and let's say we're going to crop this to an 8x10. So I'll just choose one of the presets from right up here. So you can see the ratio is 4x5 to 8x10, which they're basically the same thing. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'll kind of maneuver my crop tool around. But if you look at what's happened here, no matter what I do, I'm losing part of this photo, right? So I'm going to have to move this tool where I'm either going to crop out, I'm going to keep the rocks in, but I crop out all this area. I'm going to keep the rocks in over here. I crop all if I move this. So you kind of see what happens here. So that's one of the problems we have when we're printing is we are forced to a specific aspect ratio of sorts to fit the paper. Well, sometimes there's details that you still want to keep in. You still want to keep in the overall composition of the photo, but maybe you're okay if things kind of stretch and move a little bit to help it fit into the paper size that you have. Well, we have a tool here inside of Photoshop, and this has been around in Photoshop for a couple of versions. So I'm using CS6, but it's been around since at least Photoshop CS5. I think even CS4 had it. It's under the Edit menu. It's called Content Aware Scale. Okay, so here's essentially how it works. Is it lets you scale an image, but it lets you choose parts of the image that are important that you don't want to lose. So what I would do in this case is before I even use the tool, and I would very rarely use the tool without doing this first. In fact, I would never use the tool without doing this first, is I take my lasso tool and I just make a very loose selection around things that are important to me in the photo here. So I know that generally this part of the photo I don't really want to mess with. Okay, this is what I consider to be the star of the photo. I don't really want to mess with this that much. So I made a selection around it. We're going to head over to the channels palette. I already have one here, but let's just create a new one. All you got to do is click on the new channel icon that makes a brand new channel and then fill it with white. So your foreground background colors down here. It's if white's the background color, it's Command Delete. If white's the foreground color, it's Option Delete. Okay, and then deselect. So now you have this channel over here called Alpha 1. So we'll come back up here, click on RGB, so that's the composite channel. Go over to your layers panel. Now we're going to come up to Edit, go down to Content Aware Scale, and before we do anything, it looks just like Free Transform, but before we do anything, we're going to come up here to Protect, and we choose Alpha 1. So we choose that channel that we just created just a second ago. So what you're telling Photoshop here is, I want to protect this part of the photo. So now watch what happens. I'm going to pull a handle here. And you see what happens? So I'm scaling the image. I'm still keeping the overall composition of the line going straight up. I'm not cropping it straight down to where the tree line gets cut off over here. I'm still keeping the overall composition. But it's kind of smushing everything together, but it's doing it in a way that really works. You can't tell. I'll take it over from the left side a little bit too, and you'll see it does the same thing. It's just compressing parts of the photo while it's protecting the part of the photo that we wanted it to. So look, no matter what I do here, that middle of the photo is never moving. It's just the left, which I think if I squish it too much, it looks weird. But it's just the left, and it's just the right. So now we can get pretty creative. You have your width and height up here. So now you can go up here and you can type in the width and the height that you're looking for whatever print size that you happen to be working with. And you can get your image, which doesn't seem to fit a print dimension, which happens more times than I can count. Digital cameras, whether you know it or not, actually don't shoot in the size of most of the typical prints, especially like 8x10s. All right, so 8x10s are you have to crop quite a bit from the left and the right hand side for 8x10. So this is a workaround for you. So I'm going to click Enter or Return here, and then let's just zoom in. I just want to show you. Take a look. I mean, you can't tell. You can't tell where it squished everything together. It not only kept the trees, but it kept the reflection going with it. So it's virtually undetectable. It still looks like trees over here, and it still looks like grass and trees over here on the right hand side. So it's a perfect alternative to cropping out parts of your photo that you might not want to crop. You can go in and you can protect a part of your photo, and you can let Photoshop help you resize the image to get it to fit the dimensions of whatever you happen to be printing to. Or it could be saving it for the web, but most often it's a print that you have to fit a specific size to. And it always happens where we have to crop something out of the photo that we didn't want to. This is a great alternative to try. I'll tell you this, it's not going to work on every single photo. If there were people all over this, it'd be very difficult to pull off. But because it's a landscape photo and it's got lots of details that are repeating details, it tends to work. So give it a try. As the more you use it, you'll start to get a feel for what types of photos it works on and what types it doesn't. But when it does work, it comes in really handy.